He's not only a muralist and a stained glass artist, he's also my first art teacher. Welcome back to Do It Yourself Sis. I'm Yama.
I'm Monet.
And today on our Artist Spotlight series, we'll be interviewing Mr. Eric Okdeh, whose work you see right behind us. He's not only a talented mural artist, he's also a very talented stained glass artist as well. And he's also my first art teacher.
Yes, so he has a really unique style of art, and he just doesn't make art in the communities. He works behind the walls with inmates, and he does amazing murals with them as well. So we are really excited to see his process and how he creates his art.
So without any further ado, stay tuned for our interview, and we will go ahead and check our artist out. What were your early years in art like?
When I was a kid, when I was in the 7th and 8th grade, my mom signed me up for art classes at Fleischer. A great experience. I met a lot of friends I still have to this day. And I built this portfolio that ended up getting me into the high school for creative performing arts. And those were an incredible 4 years. And then because of Kappa, I got into Tyler School of Art. Once I started at Tyler School of Art as a freshman, I started painting murals, believe it or not. I met Jane. This is back when the program was really small in its infancy. There was only 3 people in the office. And I was painting murals in rec centers. Yeah, it was, and it wasn't until I graduated and I just kept doing it. And then I started working in different programs within mural arts. And it's been 23 years. So I started in 1998. First mural was at the Man outdoors. We did a series of really simple murals at the Man, and I've been doing it ever since. 23 years.
That's amazing. When you started with mural arts, was it still called mural arts, or was it the Anti-Graffiti Network at that time?
It just stopped being the Anti-Graffiti Network. So that they were a part of the city-run program. I was painting a lot of rec centers. Some of those still exist. I think I have about 5 in the 90s that are still up, but I'll never tell anybody.
So what were your most recent projects, and what are you currently working on now?
Because of the pandemic, everything got held up and postponed, and then it all had to happen at once. So this summer I did 4 murals in 4 different cities, and it was
wow.
It was crazy. I basically started fabricating everything in January here. There was a lot of glass, a lot of mosaic happening for 2 of the projects. So basically from January till about May, I was making everything. And then June and July, I had to install 4 murals in 4 cities. But now, when it gets to the winter months, if I don't have anything going on, I start focusing on stained glass windows. Every year I end up making a good number of windows. And that's something I started picking up a few years ago, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. But you could also do some straight lines too. Okay. Now you can break that with your hands, or you carry running pliers. And what these do, it helps snap your glass. And the bolt is always facing you because you can adjust it to the width of your glass. You don't want to you're not trying to break it, but.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And now if I were to do a curve, sometimes you can make a shape that's a little hard to cut in a certain way. But what I would do here is I would get my pliers on either end and just, you hear that crack? Mm-hmm. You want to listen for that crack, very gentle. Okay, and then you can cut curves. I mean, you can even go even steeper than that.
So when you are creating your designs for your mosaics, do you sketch it out first?
Yeah, I'll work on a piece. I'll use Procreate a lot these days to design, and then I'll project and then lay it out here and cut all these pieces. Cool. So this window, I'm going to use the copper foil technique. And what we do is, you get each piece after it's cut. You get each piece and you wrap it with copper foil tape. I always like how this looks, and then we solder the pieces, and the end result is silver, but you can color it to look copper again. So you wrap your edges of the glass with the tape. So once you have the piece wrapped, go over the edges, and sometimes you have to, because this adds a little bit of thickness to your glass, sometimes you have to grind it down a little bit to make things fit, make your pieces fit again. But so I'll basically do this for every single piece of glass in the piece. I'll wrap it all with copper foil. Every piece will get wrapped, and then I take this liquid called flux, and I'll go over the edges of each piece of copper foil, and then when I get my soldering iron and my solder, I could drop a bead of solder in the middle, and the flux will make it just attract right to the copper, and you just solder everything, and then the whole thing will be soldered just like that window right there. That's the end result. So every one of these pieces of glass were like individually laid out and wrapped, and then soldered like that. So, and as opposed to this window back here, that's actually lead bars. So it's a different type of process. Like there needs to be a thicker width between the pieces of glass, and I'm literally fitting in and cutting lead bars all around.
So like, okay, you put the mural up, if somebody graffitis on it, somebody comes out and paints it. I'm like, what if the tile gets damaged, or what if the glass chips off? Like, how does that happen?
Well,
you have to go back out and
that's a good question. Well, one thing, as for color, so this will never fade. And a mural, like, you'll lose your yellows, your oranges, and reds first in about like 8 years. It's a little better now.
Yeah.
Like I have this one mural that we used as a litmus test. Like I did a piece. It's in South Philly. I painted it in '99. It's a flag mural. It's a mural of like the history of the flags. By 2009, it desperately needed to get restored. Like desperately. It was so bad. Like faded. Didn't even look like it existed anymore. We repainted it with all the new stuff that we're using now, like golden colors and all that. And the next 10 years flew by. It needs to get touched up again because part of the wall's flaking, but like, to look at the color, you would have no idea. So the paint's getting better, but this will never fade. Like this yellow will be this yellow forever. They can break. Things happen. Like I did a piece of 52nd and Master about 10 years ago. Somebody crashed a car into it, and it sent ripples up the stucco. So there's cracks, and some of the mosaic cracked. So we went up, and I had replaced some pieces and regrouted and resealed the grout, so it should be good. It's definitely, I mean, the good thing is, I've kind of worked out a lot of the kinks about what you can and can't do. So I try not to put my mosaic too low. And it's not because of people, but it's because of like the ground. Like if there's like a field, all that moisture is going to soak up the wall. Mm-hmm. So you got to be real careful with like how you place your mosaic. So I've kind of worked out those kinks to make sure that these projects last a lot longer. But yeah, for the most part, they're not going anywhere. I'm trying to make another leap this year. I'd applied for a project that we didn't get, but it was like, it posed like an interesting set of problems because it was a fountain. Part of the year, seasonally, it's going to be water all the time, splashing, hitting your piece. It's going to be submerged, but there's also like water constantly hitting it. And we looked up, we were going to jump back into tile for that one, and we looked into what we could use. When we started researching materials, the one thing we came across was titanium. And working with titanium pieces, just like a 1/4 inch sheet, and you can get them like water jet cut. You can have like an Illustrator file, cut whatever you need. I think that's where this is going to go. That's the next move is doing stuff like that, because like working these projects, like percent for art projects, which are basically if there's like new construction, municipal project or whatever, there's like 1% of that budget is reserved for the arts. So there's artists can get lot of work that way, but it's challenging because sometimes these places don't exist yet, right? So you're like designing for nothing. The way you can really make some money and the way you can really get into that world is by changing the materials that you work with.
How many outdoor projects do you have?
I think I'm approaching 200, and since 2010 I started working internationally, and that's been really exciting. And so I have walls in Europe, I have walls in Asia.
Yeah, Mr. Eric, I like that you mix mediums in your murals because there's not a lot of murals that can incorporate mosaic tiles and stained glass and it makes it look like it's supposed to be together.
It's supposed to be together, yeah.
Because I'm like, you would think the flow wouldn't match.
The reason that it flows so well is I don't think of it like a rectangular, like this rectangle is going to be the mosaic and then the rest is going to be the, like it can't be that. So I figure out a way to work it where I can do all the glass and even when I'm collaborating with people, like when I was working with Jamon in Memphis, Like he flew up here, we projected everything, and then on the same sheets I was able to cut out where the mosaic was, and he got the stuff to paint. So that way I knew like our math was perfect. Like just don't go over these lines and we're gonna be good. And it was great. Like that part was great. So I really try to, with the murals that I do and the mosaics that I do, I really try to compose it in a way that it moves the eye, leads you around.
So can you tell us, how did you get started in teaching?
I taught these crash course lessons in Photoshop with real young kids. And there were Saturday workshops at the Aiken's house. And so that, I think the kids were like maybe 8 to 12 years old. That was interesting, but it was cool because they brought a lot of students in from different parts of the city, and some people I still know to this day. So it was really great being able to work with them. And then it turned into, we're going to work at this rec center. So I started to like work on all the different stuff. I think that was big picture program at Mural Arts. And then from big picture, it went to the advanced program. That's where we were making, I think we were working on murals over the weekends and stuff. And then from the advanced program, I went into mural core.
Well, that's how I got reintroduced to you.
Right.
Because I was in that Photoshop class when I was 12, 13, and then went to core.
So as I was working in mural core, I got a job where I started working at Graterford Prison. And it started out with, they needed me to go up and show the guys how to install a mural with cloth. It was their first mural, and they did it in the auditorium where we all worked. And it was like this great, huge studio space to be able to create. And that's where I met everybody for the first time. At the time, I think it was like 6 or 7 guys. Just about everyone was a lifer. And the interesting thing was I didn't know everybody was a lifer, because like my thing was, when we're in this room, it's not going to be about this, it's about the art. And I told Jane, if there's ever an opening, let me know, I'll come back. And there was, and I did. And I stayed there for 11 years. Working with the guys was always the best part. But it's, there's a lot of challenges in the work. There's challenges in finding walls for work like that. So, some of the projects would take a really long time because of things like that. When we were able to work on projects specifically with the restorative justice theme in mind, those were the best. And we did a project in 2010 that was about the impact of incarceration on families. And at that point, I'd been so many years in working with these guys, and some murals were just community-based murals that we were working on, but then when they had those themes, we really sat down and like figured out like what do we want this to be. There was about a year, we didn't even have a wall, but we're talking about the impact of incarceration on families, and we're working with the Prison Society, we're working with all these different outside organizations, and we're working with men who've been incarcerated and their families, and we're hearing all their stories. And what I did was I started to record. We made a website where all the clips would live. And then we painted these mailboxes as a way to keep, work with the guild, keep everybody busy. We designed and created 12 mailboxes. There were 6 designs, so each mailbox, 1 design per 2 mailboxes. And we put them all over the city. City Hall, the public library, public defender's office, like places where people are doing a lot of sitting and thinking about the issue. They had pads of paper with questions and prompts, and people wrote. Somebody would write, do the crime, do the time. Things like that, because they're anonymous. A lot of the time we would get some really intense stories that people would allow us to share on the site. Yeah, so then it got to be like there was a year of this. And then it's like the challenge was, how do we connect people to that? I worked on projects where people were using QR codes. I figured out a way to incorporate them into the design, and that design had 22 codes that you could scan, and it takes you to audio. And you can hear these people talk from these meetings and these workshops. And it was a really impressive project, and I was so proud of like what we did, because you could still go there today and scan the codes and listen to these stories. I always look really fondly at those times, because we did really important work. And the one thing I would always hear these guys say, now they're all self-taught artists, they're all amazing, their work looks as incredible as you would imagine it would be, it's like very detailed, meticulous work. All of them say, I wish we had something like this program when we were kids. And then when I would hear things like that, I'm still working with kids. So that would energize me. It would keep me going, and it would really make me see the value in what we were doing. I had like this renewed sense of self as a teacher, and the kids that I was working with to sort of, make sure that they're really getting something out of this.
Thank you so much, Eric, for agreeing to do our interview and giving us some insight into your early years and your current work. This was by far the most exciting interview for me up to date. because it just came kind of full circle.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's been great catching up with you. This is awesome.
So could you tell us your social media handles?
Yes. I'm Okdeh Murals, OKDEH Mural on Instagram.
So you guys like and subscribe
And comment and also share. And we will see you next time for our next Artist Spotlight series on Do It Yourself Sis. Bye.
Bye y'all.